You broke into the wrong rec room, didn't you son of a... Beep, beep. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this thing that we like to call Movie Mondays with Matt. Plus, I'm your host, whether you like it or not, Matt Rasmussen, a.k.a. the King of Halloween, a.k.a. Morning Show Director here, a.k.a. Local filmmaker. So, today, Tremors. We are talking about Tremors today. Why Tremors today? Because it's back on the big screen. It's back on the big screen for this week only. Check your local showtimes if you want to go and see Tremors on the big screen as God intended. It's one of the greatest sci-fi horror comedies of all time. One of the greatest. I think the mix, the blend of the sci-fi horror comedy elements was probably only done better in Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters and Tremors, I think, really run the market on those mishmash fun, I don't really want to say creature feature, but kind of creature feature-y comedy horror gateway films. So, we have so much to talk about today. We're going to split this into many different parts because this is a big franchise. This franchise is 7 movies long. It's got a television series. It has a busted pilot. And it even has a canceled video game. And it talks of more things in the future as well. And it's a franchise that's very near and dear to me as well for many reasons. So I'm going to go a little into my history with this franchise. And we even have a special guest that'll be joining us later on randomly in this series of episodes here as well. So let's get into it. But first, let's talk about those box office numbers, huh? We're going to get into that. So let's get this queued up just a second and joink. There we go, mics. All right, number 5, Minions and Monsters made another $9.6 million, falling to 5th place. Then number 4 this week, Hadestown, the filmed version of this Tony-winning stage musical, opened in 4th place with $9.7 million. Then, in 3rd place, Toy Story 5 took in $10 million, topping the $1 billion mark worldwide, which is huge. I think only Toy Story 4 has made $1 billion on the franchise. Then, Moana stayed in 2nd place, grossing $10.5 million for a domestic total of $102 million. Then lastly, number 1, again, The Odyssey. It made $87 million in its 2nd weekend, and it gives this Christopher Nolan epic a 10-day domestic total of $286 million and nearly $640 million worldwide. We could talk about The Odyssey all day, but hey, we talked about it for nearly an hour and a half last week. So go and check that episode out if you want to hear more about our thoughts and opinions on that one. Let's go back to Cam. Zink. Okay, so, yay, The Odyssey is doing awesome. We're going to talk about Tremors. Tremors came out in 1990, and one of the reasons that Tremors is so near and dear to me, it's a gateway horror movie, if you want to consider it that. It is the perfect blend of everything that is just toned down enough for younger audiences to decide if that's where they want to continue to follow the path into horror, as I did as a child. I experienced Tremors, I believe, back when it first aired in 1992. I'll never forget kind of that moment that I was first hearing of Tremors. Growing up in our household, we only had 4 channels, and if we wanted to watch anything, we had to record something off of the TV. So we had a few different VHS tapes lying around, and we just recorded random things. There were random movies I grew up with like Caddyshack 2 was one of them, and Ghostbusters was one. That's one I refused to let anyone record over. And we also had Ghostbusters 2. We also had Tremors. Tremors was one of those few movies we had. And I remember we were rummaging around. We were looking for something to watch, and my brother said, "Oh, I know what I want to watch. Tremors. This just recorded, I believe, the night prior." I was like, "Tremors? What is this?" Had no idea. I still wasn't quite getting into horror yet, but I was starting to figure out that I liked spooky things at 7 years old. So then my brother threw it on, and us boys, we all gathered around, we watched Tremors, and I was beside myself with this movie. It was funny, it was scary, it was gory, it was something I was very pulled into because the story was so well done, and I was fascinated. And I was also terrified by certain parts. There's a part I'll never forget where there's the couple, the doctor and his wife. They have the generator that gets sucked underground. And real quick before I get into that, preface, what is Tremors about, so you know what this scene is going to be. There's these giant underground worms that attack. And it's like Jaws, but on land, really. And that's kind of how this idea was pitched when they were first throwing it out there. And in fact, they were going to call it Land Shark at one point, and it went through many different iterations with the titles and things. So it's these giant underground worms that have these like tongues that come out, and they have their own thoughts and opinions on their own, so they can decide what they want to do. They also have teeth, and they'll grab you and pull you under. Horrifying idea. And they can't see you, they can only hear you. But then as the franchise continues, you learn more about the life cycle of these giant things. They're called graboids, by the way, and you can see them pictured here. Anyway, so back to the scene at hand. So it's the doctor and his wife at night. Their generator gets pulled underground. And they're like, oh, what's going on? Where's the generator? And they look, and it had just been sucked down. And he starts pulling on the cable. And then he gets pulled under, and he's screaming, and the wife's screaming, and she's trying to pull him out. And he gets pulled down, and she's trying to dig and get him. And then one of these little tongues pops out and snarls at her, and slime's all dripping down. And she screams and runs into the car. And then immediately they start attacking her car, and they pull the car underground. And it happens slowly, and there's like a scene where you can see looking out the back side of the car that the dirt, it breaks in the window and it's starting to fill in the back seat, and it tilts up and you can see the light shining up, and then it gets pulled down and the lights get covered up by the dirt. Horrifying how they did it. And there are amazing little moments like that throughout, and that's something that'll always stick with me, that specific scene. And so it's not all horror, it's also like really fun character studies that happen throughout this franchise as well. So let's kind of set the scene a little bit. Tremors 1 came out in 1990. It stars Kevin Bacon, Fred Ward, Michael Gross, and Reba McEntire. Reba McEntire, the country singer. She stars as one of the female leads. Finn Carter is the main female lead in this. So, starts with Val and Earl, who, I mean, they're great. They're one of the greatest bro duos in the history of horror or comedy or whatever you want to call this franchise. They've become memes. There are so many memes dedicated to just the bromance between those two, and even more if you want to look deeper into their little relationship with each other. The chemistry between Fred Ward and Kevin Bacon is amazing. It's the heart of this first movie, I'd say, and it's one of the strongest relationships that you see explored in this entire franchise. So those two together, it's electric. It's perfect, and you just can't stop watching to see what those two do. And they feed off of each other, and they're giving each other a hard time, and they're trying to take credit for this and that. And they're doing paper, rock, scissors, and it's just fun to watch those two. And they're the unlikely heroes of this first movie, as they decide they're gonna leave Perfection, Nevada. This is where most of the movies take place. And upon trying to leave town is when the graboids start to present themselves to the townspeople, and they start to attack. And they just say, oh, we decided to leave this town one day too late. And that becomes kind of a recurring joke for a little bit there. They're ready to leave town, and the graboids make sure nobody can leave town as they attack a couple of workers who are working on the one road into town, and an avalanche breaks and everyone's trapped in town. There's nothing they can do, and they're looking at the map, and as Kevin Bacon's pointing out everything that has happened so far on the map, he says this valley is one long smorgasbord, and that's kind of to set the scene of what this is all about. And as the movie develops, you learn more about what these creatures are. You don't learn their origin, you'll find that out later. But first you see the tongues, and you think, oh, the tongue is the monster, but nope. Then you see the full-on graboid itself, and you think, oh, that's the threat. Then you find out, nope, there are more of those out there, so there's even a larger threat. And the movie, much like the early movies, they keep building, and they keep giving you more. They give you more to the story, and they make you think that you figured it all out, but you haven't. There's more to come, because these creatures, they learn, and they get smarter. That's another thing. Whenever they're trying to combat these creatures, they figure out what to do to combat the people, and then they're able to take out more people, and so that's kind of a recurring theme with these movies as well. Most of them were written by it's Brent Maddock and S.S. Wilson are the main writers, and they're amazing. I'd say the writing of these movies is some of the strongest of any franchise for the first 4 movies, at least, I will say. And then they also wrote the television series. It's the same writing duo that did the Short Circuit movies. I really wish there were a bunch of those, because those are really fun. And it shows the character work where when you have to think on your feet in order to survive, what can you pull from what's around you in order to keep going to the next step? How can you MacGyver your way out of this situation into the next thing? And that's what these characters constantly do. They're constantly trapped. They're like, what do we do now? We have to figure out how to do this thing. What do we have around us? And they work together to outsmart the monsters to get to the next thing. And that's the recurring theme of these movies. And it's done to perfection, pun intended, in part 1. I'd say Tremors 1 is a near perfect movie. Everything about it is just amazing, from the acting, the directing, the editing specifically, the pacing. I rewatched it again last night, and the pacing is just perfect. There's not a dull moment. There's never a moment. You're not allowed to be bored with these movies, because every single thing that's happening is enthralling. The casting, pitch perfect. The writing is so brilliant that when these characters are introduced, you understand exactly who each character is, what their relationships are to each other, kind of what their motivations are, and it's all indirect. They don't beat you over the head with what these specifics are. You figure them out, and they're so perfect with the casting. I just can't get over that. I mean, case in point, Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward, like, what a dynamic duo they are. I really wish they had continued into more movies together like that, because like this is it. Kind of for them, it's a one and done with that dynamic duo. So, what else is there to say about Tremors? It's just great. I love everything about it. Check it out if you get the chance. It's the best movie in the franchise. Man, go see it on the big screen. That's how it's supposed to have been seen. But audiences at the time did not show up to see this movie in 1990. I've seen it on the big screen a couple of times now, and it always kills. I've gone to it with people who have never heard of Tremors, and it's a crowd pleaser no matter what. It has something for everybody. Like I said, it's kind of like Ghostbusters, but if it was a Western and involved underground monsters. It's amazing. So, yeah, audiences at the time weren't quite sure what this movie was supposed to be, so not a lot of people showed up to it. And it was a little bit of a box office bomb at the time. It came and went, and really Kevin Bacon thought his career was over when this movie happened. He only agreed to do it because he needed the money at the time, and he was starting a new family and this and that, and he thought, oh, you know, whatever, this will be a fun little paycheck, and he seemed to think it was cool enough to do. But after it tanked, he kind of wanted to distance himself from it. But as with many movies that are a box office disappointment, once they are released onto the home video market, that is when you truly find out the worth of a movie. That is when it really matters. The marketing is over, all that nonsense, all the buzz, the reviews, smear campaigns, whatever, all that stuff is over. And you can just subjectively look at a box cover and say, that looks fun, and take it home. Then that movie lives solely on word of mouth amongst people. And that is what happened with Tremors. It was quietly released on home video where it earned a cult following. It just, word of mouth exploded. And everyone's like, you have to see this movie about these giant worms. And sure enough, this movie really gained a second life, a cult following. You know, it's enough said. People finally discovered it for what it was. It also started to earn a second life on the TV as well. As I said, I saw it in 1992. It started airing on USA, and all these different networks started to pick it up, and it really became something. And enough so that Universal decided, well, maybe we should make a sequel many years later, but they were planning for the home video market. That was kind of something they were trying out at the time. Going to, say, 94, 95, they decided that maybe it was time to make a sequel. And so they tried to get Kevin Bacon back. And for whatever reason, that did not work. And so they went to the number 2 guy, Fred Ward, and they were able to get Fred Ward back. So Fred Ward is now the star. Michael Gross comes in again, and those are your 2 returning characters that are showcased in part 2. And honestly, Tremors 2 is one of my favorite sequels of all time. It is one of the, as far as direct-to-video sequels go, it is so amazing it should have been released theatrically. It's like they didn't even care that it was going to be just a direct-to-home video effort. They put everything into this movie, and it's the same writers again, Wilson and Maddock, that came back, and they really nailed it a second time. It wasn't quite the same without the same chemistry of Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward, but Fred Ward has really good chemistry with the rest of the cast of part 2, and then you have a new guy, Grant Gustin, I believe, is the name of the guy that plays Grady, who becomes his sidekick in part 2. Just a second here. Anyway, also before part 2, they were even talking about doing a television series back then in the 90s. And they were hoping to get Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward back for that. And it was just going to be them not really pursuing graboids again, but different types of monsters. And unfortunately, that whole thing fell apart, didn't work. So then they moved into the let's do a direct sequel path, and then part 2 became the amazing thing that it is. I also have, here we go, a VHS copy of part 2. This is the copy of part 2 and part 1 that I've always had kind of, once I was able to like buy movies on home video, I wanted to make a point of getting Tremors 1 and 2 as they're like some of my favorite movies of all time. And again, gateway movies, so they've always had a special place in my heart here. So, what does there say about Tremors 2? Well, it picks up, let's say, maybe 6 years later, as in the, as the home video timeline was also, this came out in 1996, part 2. Fred Ward is back, and he's down on his luck. And the costume I'm wearing today is low-key kind of based on Fred Ward at the start of Tremors 2. He's all grizzled looking. He's running his own little ranch that isn't very successful, and he keeps saying he blew his big chance. And so now he's just kind of a curmudgeon. He doesn't want to be found. He wants to distance himself from the fame that he got from part 1. There's all that kind of stuff. And then he gets recruited by somebody that owns a Mexican oil rig and a drilling operation or a refinery, have you. And they're wanting to recruit him as an expert to eliminate graboids who have just surfaced down there and have started killing people. And so Fred Ward reluctantly agrees to go because Grady convinces him and says, this could be your big second chance. And so he decides to go out and try it again. And part 2 is amazing. One of the things about part 2 that I love is it's not a carbon copy of 1. As it begins, you think it's going to be kind of a rinse and repeat of part 1, but you get halfway into the movie and things change. This is when the graboids start to evolve, if you will. They start to reveal the next life cycle or their life phase that is to come. In this case, they become shriekers, and that's kind of the twist that you find out in the middle of the movie. Nope, it's different this time. You were preparing for graboids, now you have these things. So even though they thought they had everything figured out from the first one, nope, now they're throwing a curveball at them. So these shriekers show up, which are little tiny versions of these graboids that have legs, and they can run on land, and they run very fast, and you can't outrun these things. And, excuse me, and they can track you down, not by listening to you, but with heat sensors. Their heat sensors pop up, they can target you, and then they can eat you, which then continues their life cycle. And then we'll find out more about that in further sequels. So, now they're fighting all these little shriekers, and they don't know what to do. And Bert is back once again. Michael Gross is Bert. And I think Tremors 2 is my favorite version of Bert. So Bert is in every single one of these Tremors movies. He's in every movie, he's in every episode of the show, well, almost every single episode of the television series as well. So this is Michael Gross's franchise, really. And this is the best iteration of Bert, because he got a little washed up after part 1 as well, the character, and he's just sitting at home going crazy, watching old war movies, and then he's given this chance to go out and fight the graboids again, and he decides, okay, I suppose I can do this. And he just goes overboard, as he does with everything. He's survivalist. He's always thinking 10 steps ahead, but again, in dealing with these creatures, doesn't matter how prepared you are, there's always some curveball. And just everything that Bert does is just, to me, iconic in Tremors 2. All of his lines, I am completely out of ammo, like all of that. It's just great to see him beside himself. And so you watch the events unfold as they're now trying to fight this new threat, and Earl is trying to right his life again, and it's just a great movie. Tremors 2 is amazing. Again, way better than any direct-to-video movie has any right to be. So check out Tremors 2 if you get the chance. It's my second favorite of the franchise. And then we will continue on into 3 through 7 and the television series. Wow, I went long here already. We're like 26, 27 minutes in. So we're going to toss a break real quick here. When we come back, I will talk about at least Tremors 3 through, I don't know, I'll try to squeeze them all in if I get the chance. But I'm definitely going to talk about all 7 of them here today. So, going to toss a break. Stick around, my friends, for Tremors Part 2, and we will be back in just a minute. Joink.